Hello learners, I am Parikshit and welcome to a very exciting session on Unacademy CAT-alyst. In today's session, we are going to talk about the last 75 days strategy for your CAT, the do's and the don'ts. Remember, you are just close to the finishing line and it's important that these last few days you get everything right so that you just don't fall behind and other runners don't overtake you in this final days. That's what I'm going to discuss. The last 75 days strategies, the most important part of your MBA CAT preparation. So let's get started. This is me, your educator on the platform with the highest live class rating thanks to my learners. A lot of batches starting on Unacademy in the next few days. The 25th of August, a batch is starting, and the 28th of August, another two batches are starting. The 28th, the practice drill batch, I will be taking that batch wherein I will be teaching you LRDI, complete revision A to Z of every type of LRDI sum that has ever been asked in the CAT or in any mock exam in the last 20 odd years. End-to-end revision, and this will continue till a week before your CAT. Make sure you enroll and join me live. To enroll on Unacademy Plus, remember to use the code which is there on your screen, Parikshit Live. If you use this code, you get maximum discount. And also, if you use the code Parikshit Live, you get free mentorship. I repeat, the only and only code which will offer you free mentorship from my side. And mentorship is all about going beyond the class hours to help you with any queries, any doubts, any revision plan, and all that you might need in this last leg of your CAT preparation. Let's get started with today's session. Okay, so the last 75 days strategy, right, to crack the CAT. Last 75 days. Why do I say 75 days where around 90 days are still remaining? 75 days strategy. Yes, it's very simple. The last 1 or 2 weeks, you can't do too many things, right? You'll have a lot of exam pressure, right? And there are a lot of other things that might be happening. So last 1 or 2 weeks, not much of study will happen. So it's important that your strategy is based on the last 75 days rather than the last 90 days. And as we stand today, today is August 26, 2021. Okay, let's get started. Let's take each of the sections. Okay, first, let's take verbal. Okay, now the best way to gauge your verbal preparation is to understand where you stand. So, first thing first, understand, right, where you stand now. Where you stand now. Now, how do you understand that? It is best gauged by your verbal percentile, the verbal percentile in the mocks that you have been giving. Not 1 or 2 mocks, but if you have given 5 mocks, take the average of the 5 mocks, and that's where you'll understand where you stand now. Now, it is very important that you understand two things in verbal, right? The first is number of attempts that you are doing. Number of attempts. Fine. And the second is accuracy. Second is accuracy. Very important. Now, first thing is, with most of you in verbal, the problem is the number of attempts is very high, but the accuracy is low. Now, that's where you got to have a balance. Probably you can reduce the number of attempts and try to have a higher accuracy. Remember, CAT does a normalization process. If your accuracy is low, you will be very heavily penalized. Hence, it is always suggested that your accuracy should be high even if your number of attempts is low. Now, how do you know what is the ideal number of attempts? Now, on average, if we are looking at a 40-minute verbal paper, right? 40-minute verbal paper, how many questions are we expecting in verbal? Anywhere between 22 questions to 25 questions. Correct? How many do you want to get correct? Probably you would attempt to get anywhere between 12 to 15 correct. 12 to 15 correct. Right. Now think about it. For getting 12 to 15 correct, how many should you attempt? Probably you'll be attending, if you want to attempt, let's say 13 correct, you want to attempt probably around 16, 17. 16, 17 is a good number to attempt. 16, 17, 18 is a good number to attempt. And on that, you need to decide how many passages you are going to read. What type of topics, RCs, are you comfortable with? RC passages, right? RC passage topics. I think if you have given 5 marks, this is something that you can easily derive. What type of topics are you comfortable with, and you tend to get the answers correct from such topics. Let's take an example. An example could be sports. You know what? Many of us in India like sports. So if today I give you a passage on cricket, you will understand the passage on cricket very well. And when attempting the questions also, it's very likely that you will get all the questions correct. On the contrary, if I give you a passage on the Indian economy, some of you might have absolutely no clue about the economy. Probably you'll have some clue about Indian economy, but if I tell you about the African economy, about the debt that the world is currently in, probably you will have absolutely no idea. Now, what would happen? Because you are less familiar with the topic, you tend to get such questions from such passages incorrect. So I would say be very particular about selecting the correct RC passages. 40 minutes might not be enough to select or do all RCs. Rather, you got to select passages based on familiarity. If you are good with history and probably you read the first 3-4 lines, you understand it's a historical passage, go for it. If you are good with economy and you feel that no, I'm not very good in economy, and you see the first 3-4 lines, it's all about economy, you can leave out the passage. So the first thing that you decide is, when you have an RC, the first point that you consider is familiarity. Familiarity. If you are familiar with the topic, go for the RC. I would say go for the RC. Second, I would also say length. Think about it. If you have one RC which is 3/4 a page, 3/4 a page, and another RC which is 1.5 pages, you know what? You might want to attempt the one which has lesser number of words, or in other words, which is shorter. More so if the number of questions in both the passages are the same. You know what? You have an RC passage which is 1.5 times lengthier compared to the previous pages, but the number of questions in each passage is the same. Probably go for the one which is shorter, so that you take less time to attempt such questions. Correct? And then the next thing that we should be particular with is parajumbers. Parajumbers, right? Parajumbers. Remember, many a time the parajumbers that you get are without answer options. There is absolutely no answer option, and if there are no answer options, there is no negative marking. You should definitely put stress. You should definitely put effort. Put your homework to ensure that you get at least a few parajumbers correct, because you're going to attempt such questions, right? The good part is there is no negative marking if there is no answer option. If there is no answer option, there is no negative marking. So try to attempt such questions, okay? Try to attempt such questions. Find out in your mocks, in the last 5 mocks that you have attempted, on an average, how many RCs did you attempt? And out of these RC questions that you attempted, what is your accuracy? Try to strike a balance. Probably some of you in 40 minutes will be able to solve 3 RC passages correctly. So 3 is a good number. Please go for those 3 passages. Don't try to solve 5 passages and get probably too many questions incorrect, right? Better attempt less but give your accuracy a much needed boost. That's point number 1. Next is in verbal, okay? In verbal, I think it is very important in your last few days strategies that you practice on a regular basis. Practice regularly. When I say practice regularly, right? At least try to solve 5 passages a day. 5 passages a day, and I think 5 passages a day is the least that you can do with 75 days remaining for your CAT. When I say passages daily, practice 5 passages daily also mean to say that you attempt questions from these passages and check how many of them you are getting right and how many are going wrong. Now, one thing which students often make a mistake here is regarding the wrong questions. Regarding the wrong questions in a mock paper, okay? Wrong questions. Now, if you have got your answer wrong to a particular question, as an example, let's say A, B, C, D. You have marked option D. You have marked option D, while the correct answer is option B. Correct answer is option B, so your answer is incorrect. So first, I would always say that first read why your answer is incorrect. It is very important to understand why your answer is incorrect rather than directly reading the correct answer. Please do not do that. It is not quants. Remember, in quants 2 plus 2 is 4. There are no two opinions about it. But in an RC passage or in verbal for that matter, first understand why you got it wrong. What was that you missed? Did you miss out on the main theme? Did not understand the question because of the use of a specific vocabulary? Or what was that went wrong, or was it a silly mistake? First try to figure out why your answer option is wrong. What is the author's opinion about it, and why has author eliminated your answer option? Convince yourself first, think about it, and only then read the correct option. Only then read the correct option. Trust me, I have given this advice to a lot of students, and if you have followed this, they say they have improved. And I've been teaching for the last 8 years, and I think this is very important. Not to know what is the correct answer, but first to know why you are wrong, and then find out why the author is giving you a different point of view with a different answer. Get the point? Very important. Very important. That's the next point that you got to keep in mind while preparing for the last 75 days of your CAT. And the third thing is passage first or passage first, okay? Or questions first. Or questions first. Which do you read first? Do you read the passages first, or do you read the questions first? Now, there are two schools of thought regarding this. One school of thought would say you should read the questions first. Other school of thought would say you should read the passage first. If you ask me, for the CAT, you know what? For the CAT, you should go with passage first. For the CAT, you should definitely read the passage first. And for exams like the IIFT, NMAT, okay, you should read the questions first. Now, I will tell you my reason for this. In exams like the IIFT, the RC passages are database. You know what? They will give you a passage, they will ask you a question, and the answer will be hidden somewhere in the passage. It is not inference based, it is rather data based. So, for such exams, it always makes sense to read the question first, go back to the passage, and then search for the answer and then take the answer. But in CAT, you know what? Rarely will you get database questions. Most of the questions are based on your understanding, are based on inferences that you derive, are based on the author's tone, right? And there are rarely direct questions. So what happens is, many a times, if students read the questions first in the CAT, let's say a question asks you, what is the meaning of the word novice as used by the author in the passage? Now, what happens? The word is just novice, but when you read the passage, you know what? Your brain has just one thing, novice. It has the word novice, and when you read it, the brain is not trying to understand the passage. Rather, your brain is trying to search for the word novice. So that moment your brain sees the word novice, it tells you, now you look for the answer. If you do that, the problem is you lose out on the theme, you lose out on the author's use of the tone, and you fail to understand the passage, and many a times you will end up getting most of the questions wrong for such a passage. Keep your mind fresh. let it be free, so that whenever you read a paragraph, you don't know whether a question has been asked on that paragraph, because of which you're going to read the paragraph in such a way so as to make sure that you understand. At least if you don't understand every line, you don't have to understand every line, but you at least understand the theme of the passage, where the author is probably talking for a topic, against a topic, or is he using a satirical tone, right? So such things are only happen when your brain is not focused with anything before you actually go and read the passage, and that will only happen if you read the passage first, followed by the questions. Please follow this. I would say out of the total number of questions, as I said, 22 to 25 questions, if you can get around 13 to 15 correct, you would end up with a 99 plus percentile in your verbal. And I think that is what all of you are targeting at this stage. So remember, where you stand now is your starting point for verbal. Where you stand now, you got to figure that out. And how do you figure that? By attempting at least 5 mocks and see checking where you stand. Correct? Now for this, I think I will give you one more thing okay? You know what? Once, and this thing that I'm going to tell you now will hold true for quants as well as for LRDI. But let's continue for verbal. Now once you analyze a mock, let's say for verbal, okay? What you do, you prepare an Excel sheet, okay? You prepare an Excel sheet wherein you mention RC passages, okay? Let's say you passage RC passages, mock 1, mock 2, mock 3. This should be an Excel sheet, dot, 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 dot. So let's say politics, RC passage, theme is politics. You know what? There was a RC passage on politics in mock 1 as well as mock 3. So out of the 4 questions, you got 3 correct. And in mock 3, out of the 4 questions, you got 4 correct. Then the next passage is economy, okay? In mock 1, there was a passage on economy. You got 1 correct out of the 4. And in mock 2, you got 1 correct out of the 4. Mock 3, there wasn't any passage on economy. Similarly, sports. You know what? You got 4 correct out of 4. And mock 2, there was no passage on sports. But in mock 3, you got 1 correct out of the 4. And so on. Similarly, mock 4, mock 5, and so on. Okay? Now what happens? At the end of 5 mocks, or at the end of 8 mocks, 10 mocks, you have sufficient data to do an analysis. What is the analysis that you're going to do here? Let's say I keep my sample size very small. I'm using only 3 mocks. Okay? You know what? You see that whenever there has been a passage on politics, you know what? You got 3 out of the 4 correct, and here you got 4 out of the 4 correct. It means political passages, you tend to score well. You should be happy about it. You know that this is your strong area. Next, you see economy passages. You know what? Out of the 4 questions, you get only 1 correct in 2 mocks. And if you have a larger sample size, the better it is. You know what? This is not your area. This is not your area. You got to be disappointed about it. And I would say if there are only a few areas, let's say economy is one such area. And similarly, you do for sports. Sports, 1 mock you did well. Another mock you did not do so well. You are not sure. You are not sure. You need more data. So do an analysis like this. And at the end of this analysis in your spreadsheet, whenever you give 5 mocks or 8 mocks or 10 mocks, you do this analysis. And at the end, come out with your strong areas. You know what? At the end of this analysis, you're going to be able to tell me that, you know what? I do well in political passages. I do well in passages related to sports. I do well in passages related to philosophy, but I don't do well on passages related to economics, or for that matter, passages related to nuclear physics. And because you know that in advance, you know what? When you go to the CAT and you read the first 3 lines of a passage, you exactly know whether this is your strong area or your weak area. If this is your strong area, you go ahead and attempt that passage in the CAT. If this is your weak area, you don't go, probably, that would not be your first attempt. That would not be your first attempt. Very important. This is not based on gut feeling, but this is based on a proper analysis that you do. And this analysis probably will take some time, will take a day. Doesn't matter. 75 days, one day you can spend on doing an analysis and deriving insightful information on the plethora of data that you have gathered for the last 2 months, 3 months, or for that matter, for the last 5 months. Very important that you do this analysis. Yes? Okay? Okay. Having said that, let's go to the next section. Let's go to the next section. Correct? Okay. And I'll come back to tell you what happens if you're not scoring well in an area. Okay, don't worry, I'm going to tell you. But first, let's go to the next section. Next section. Okay. The next section is gonna be your LRDI section. LRDI section. Okay. So remember LRDI 40 minutes. 40 minutes. How many sets are we expecting? We are expecting 5 to 6 sets. 5 to 6 sets. What is your target attempt, or probably a 99 plus percentile? If you look at the last 4 years data, 3 to 4 years data, okay, if you are able to solve 50% correct, 50% of the questions correct, okay, in other words 2.5 to 3 sets, 2.5 to 3 sets correct, you would end up with a 99 plus percentile. 99 plus percentile. And now I think you can answer the very basic question which most of you keep asking me. Sir, how much time should I take to answer one set? On an average, I would say around 12 minutes, 10 to 12 minutes, or for that matter, 10 to 13 minutes per set is good. Remember, on an average, there will be around 4 questions per set. 4 questions per set. So if you are able to solve one set in approximately 12 minutes, 12, 13, 14, doesn't matter, 14 minutes or 15 minutes, worst case scenario, you'll be through. You'll be through. Target to get 2.5 to 3 sets correct. Yes? Now, I think in LRDI, 50% is your knowledge, 50% is whether you are able to attempt the sets. But the remaining 50% of LRDI, I think, is determined by your selection of sets. You might be very, very, very good in LRDI, scored consistently high, but on the day of the exam, if you pick up out of the 6, remember, out of the 6, 2 sets would be difficult. 2 of the sets would be minimum 2 sets would be really difficult. And another 4 would be easy to moderate. Easy to moderate. You end up picking the 2 difficult sets, the 2 most difficult sets. No matter how good you are in LRDI, chances are you might not fare very well in this section. So it is important, like your verbal section. When I said verbal, I said pick up the correct passages. In LRDI also, you got to pick up the correct sets. Now, how do you determine and choose the correct sets? Same. You know what? Like verbal, here also you do the same thing. You come across, let's say on your screen, you will have these numbers appearing, these question numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, dot, 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 and then you will have a number 16, dot, 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 like this, right? So what do you do when you come to the screen? By default, you'll end up at set 1. You'll end up at set 1. You spend 30 seconds or probably 20 seconds having a glance at the set. I'm not saying read the set. I'm only saying having a glance at the set. Glance the set. Decide which topic is it. Is it from blood relations? Is it from a 5-set Venn diagram? What topic is that? Decide the topic, okay? Similarly, immediately after 15-20 seconds, once you know the topic, you click on probably question number 5. Directly you click on question number 5. It will take you to set 2. Look at the topic. What topic has it come from? And probably also you can look at the length. Similarly, you can click on question number 9, you can click on question number 12, question number 16. And in this way, what would have happened? The outcome is at the end of 2 minutes, what would have happened? You would have spent 120 seconds. 120 seconds is basically 2 minutes. At the end of 2 minutes, you would have looked at all the 5 and 6s. 5 or 6s. Now you know the topic from which these sets have come. and at the end of 2 minutes, you decide which are the 2 or 3 sets that you are going to attempt. Probably set number 3 you are going to attempt first. Then you are going to attempt set number 5, and then you are going to try to attempt set number 1. These are the 3 sets that you are going to attempt first, and if time permits, obviously you are going to attempt the remaining sets. But the order is 3, 5, and 1. I think this, if you do correctly, if you're able to decide on the set correctly, 50% of your LRDI is done, is decided, right? 2 minutes, and I think the first 2 minutes of LRDI will decide how your exam goes and how you fare in this specific section. Now, how do you decide whether you'll go with set 3, set 5, or set 1? Again, I would say familiarity. Familiarity is the word. Even for verbal, I said familiarity. Here also, I'm going to use the same word, familiarity. Probably there is a linear arrangement passage which you have done once in your mocks, which you have done very similar exam puzzle you have done in your class, in my class PDFs, right? Or probably in your mocks, and you know that this looks very familiar. You are gonna attempt that first. Correct? Or you know what? There is a question on a 6-set Venn diagram. 6-set Venn diagram. You know that never in the last 90 days or never in the 6 months of your CAT preparation, you have done a 6-set Venn diagram. So are you going to do this first or directly on the exam day? No, you are immediately going to cross out that particular set. Correct. So familiarity, and when I say familiarity, it is whether you have come across such a similar set before. That is what is important when you prepare. That is what is important when you prepare, right? For when you prepare for your LRDI. When you prepare for your LRDI. Very, very, very important. Selection of sets, right? Selection of sets. I'm just going to ensure that I am streaming live. Give me a moment. Yes. So the 6-set Venn diagram train is very, very, very important. Correct? Okay. First, as I said, is familiarity. First, as I said, is familiarity. The next thing that would come across, is again the length of the best set, the length of the puzzle. Remember, the greater the length, the more the information you have to process. And more the information you have to process, generally with students, the tougher it becomes. So if the set is very long, you have to scroll up and down. Too much of information, you are not going to pick up such a set at the start. Rather, pick up a set which has got less information so that you are able to know. Even if you are not able to solve, you get to know within the first 3-4 minutes that you will not be able to solve the set, and you will immediately go to the next set. Right? So familiarity and length is something that you got to keep in mind while deciding on LRDI. The third thing that I must tell you. What is the third thing that I must tell you? The third thing that I must tell you is I always believe, and this is a personal opinion, some of you might not agree, but I think it works. DI questions first. DI questions first. DI questions first. When I say DI questions first, why do I say so? Remember, in LR, it's a puzzle. A puzzle, unless you actually use a pen and a paper, you will not be able to decide whether you will be able to solve such a question. I'm just checking, okay, if I'm streaming live. You will not be able to decide whether you will be able to get such a question correct. Right? Puzzle, you don't know whether, unless you actually use a pen and a paper, you don't get to know. But DI, if you just look at the passage, if you just look at the question set, many a times you will get to know whether you have got that correct. Whether, I won't say correct, whether you'll be able to solve it. If it's a percentage increase case lead, many a times looking at the case lead itself, you'll be able to say, I'll be able to do this. I will be able to do this. So definitely when it comes to LR and DI, I believe you got to attempt DI first. Now I think that is it Quants I would cover in a separate video. But verbal and LRDI strategy has been covered in this video. I believe I have made sense. Please follow this strategy carefully. Please make sure that you practice enough questions so as to get familiar with the type of questions being asked in an examination, right? And if you practice well, 75 days, 10 sets, if not 10 sets, at least 5 sets or 6 sets a day, you would end up solving 300, 400 to 500 more sets before your CAT. And that is a very good number to gain the confidence that you need to do well. To gain the confidence that you would need to do well. Correct? So very, very, very important. And I think this is what would decide, your success in the verbal and LRDI section of the CAT. Fine? Okay, I think that is it regarding the last 5 strategy. Quants I will cover in a separate video, but verbal and LRDI is what I gave you today. Okay, and yes, a few announcements. You know what? There are offers going on Unacademy Plus subscription. If you go on, if you are looking for a 6-month subscription, 6 months till your CAT and after your CAT, GDPI, and for other exams, IIFT, ZAT, CET, CMAT, you can go for a 6-month subscription. You see, there is a lot of offers going on each of these subscriptions, right? And the best part is, if you use the code which is there on the screen, Parikshat Light, you will get extra 10% off. Extra 10%. So apart from what you see on the screen, you will get some 10% extra off if you use the code which is there on your screen, Parikshat Light. The same applies for Iconic subscription as well. You get extra discounts using the code Parikshat Live. And yes, there is a MBA 2021 mock test marathon also. Do enroll for it. And yeah, a big surprise awaits you this Sunday. Do enroll for free. That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the session and I'm going to see you in my next session. Till then, goodbye and stay safe. Bye for now.